Hello and welcome to part 5 of my review of the Marvel Ultimate Graphic Novel Collection. Today we're reviewing the books that were released as issues 13, 14 and 15. So we start off with issue 13, which was The Amazing Spider-Man, Kraven's Last Hunt, written by Jean-Marc Dematteis and art by Mike Zeck. This story is basically Kraven is coming to the end of his life, and he feels the only thing that he hasn't fulfilled in his life is to defeat Spider-Man. But it's not enough to just defeat Spider-Man, he's got to prove he is Spider-Man's superior. So Kraven goes out on his last hunt, and he manages to drug Spider-Man and put him in a coffin and basically bury him alive. Kraven then takes on Spider-Man's image. He puts the costume on and becomes Spider-Man for a night, to prove that by becoming Spider-Man, by doing a better job than Spider-Man, he thus proves he is Spider-Man's superior. During this night, he encounters a Spider-Man villain called Vermin, who is part human and part rat, who has previously backed Spider-Man and Captain America and is hiding in the sewers. And he's scared of Spider-Man, but decides he needs to come out for food, and that is his initial motivation, food, and to prove he's not scared. And then he encounters Kraven, which things don't end up good for Vermin. And meanwhile, Peter is facing, is this the end of his life? He's buried alive. Is this it? Is this where he meets his maker? Is this where he faces the end? We also have the nice little side story of Mary Jane going out of her mind with worry. Is Peter okay? And then she gets rescued by Spider-Man, but she can tell it's not Peter. It's not Peter, it's somebody else. So that makes her even more worried. So a nice little side story there as well. All in all, this is a fantastic book. Really dark for a Spider-Man story, but it works really well. It's told over 3 different books. It was a 6-part story that appeared across Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man and Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. And it is not your average Spider-Man story, but it works really well. Kraven is a fantastic villain. I've never read anything else with Kraven in before, so I'd love to know if he's always like this. He's very manipulative, but at the same time, he's not evil. He wants to prove he's the best, and he doesn't care who he uses or what he uses to get that message across that he's the best. But at the same time, he's got a certain sense of nobility, a certain sense of honour that we see towards the end of the book. Peter, you have seen him in some real tough battles, but this one, buried alive, I've never seen Peter get buried alive, and even he starts to question, is this it? And it's only his love for MJ that makes him pull through. Vermin as well is another guy that isn't your stereotypical villain. In many ways in this story, he is very much a victim throughout a lot of this story. But this is just really good. I really enjoyed it. I read this book in one sitting. It's really good. The general theme of the story is death. It goes like Kraven coming to the fact that he's ready to die. He just wants to do this one thing. And then you got Spider-Man sort of facing, is this the end? So there's a lot of sort of looking at death in this book. The art itself is superb, and I really recommend that. There's some books in this collection that even if you're not collecting the collection, seek out this book, because it's a really good book, and this is one of them. This is a really good Spider-Man story, and I definitely give it a thumbs up. Now, as always, I give you the tour of the book. You can see in the series, they've got the picture on the spine. They'll all join up to make one big picture. This is issue 10. Number 10. Though it was released as issue 13, in order it's number 10. So it's one of the more earlier books. Of course, you have the back as well there. Inside, as always, on the inside cover, I don't know how well you can see this, but you have the montage for images from the comic. You then have your cover with Kraven there as Spider-Man. We then have the people that were put this book together. We then have your introduction and your story so far. We then each cover is reprinted, and then we get the comic. The internal art is just gorgeous. I really loved. And it's not just the art; it's the way that it's inked and the way that it's coloured as well. Just really add add to it. But it's definitely one of the books worth checking out. So yeah. Then at the back, as always, we have our, like, what if it was a DVD, you'd call them your special features. You have a poster gallery of Kraven, as well as a look at the artist, Mike Zeck, who's the artist behind this, and all the stuff that he's done in the past. We then have the writer talking about the process of how he came up with this story, which is always very interesting. We then have our Kraven gallery of Kraven the Hunter, and we finish it all off with Kraven's family tree, and of course our last page is our further reading. All in all, another really good bargain, 10 quid and you get all of that. A really good bargain. Really love this book and definitely recommend checking it out. Next up we have, as issue 14, it was Captain America The New Deal, written by John Neighbor and art by John Cassaday. Now this is a bit of a controversial book in a way. It was written at the time of 9/11, and that was one of the most horrific events in the history, in world history, certainly in my lifetime. You know, here in the UK, you know, I grew up at a time where there were a lot of bombings with the IRA blowing stuff up, and so like we over here were kind of used to that, but 9/11 was just something on a totally different scale, and I can remember how I felt the next day, how the world just seemed different and everybody seemed that little bit quieter. So I can understand, you know, everybody who lived, you know, I had people that they lost in that day, on that day, or lived in New York, how much it would have affected them. And John Neighbor, you know, has written this story and he wanted to talk about that because that was something that he was feeling. I personally feel it was a mistake. I think they should have stayed away from it, shouldn't have put it in the comic. However, if you're going to put something like that in the comic, then probably the most appropriate character is Captain America, and not because of the red, white and blue, or that he's the Sentinel of Liberty, but because, like, you look at his history, and he started out, you know, he was punching Adolf Hitler on comic book covers. That's how Captain America started out. So he's always had that connection in a way to real life, more than probably any other hero. So probably the most appropriate. And while it's drawn beautifully and it's dealt with sensitively, I still feel they should not have gone there. They could have just started the story as the story. So we start off on 9/11 and Cap's there trying to dig people out of the ruins. He's Steve Rogers. He's not dressed as Captain America, he's Steve Rogers, and he's helping out trying to dig people out of the ruins. But unfortunately all they're finding are dead bodies. Nick Fury shows up, wants Cap to go on a mission. Cap tells him, hell no, I'm here where I'm needed most. That he feels he's let these people down and he feels guilt over what has happened. He's walking home and he encounters a young Asian kid and he says, like, you know, do you know what time it is it safe for you to be out? And the kid was like, my dad was born round here, so I'm not going to hide out now, I didn't blow nothing up, you know. And so like, but Cap can see these three guys following him, so he gets into his Captain America gear and saves the kid. But the guy's just upset because the guys that are going to attack him, one of them's lost a woman called Jenny. She died in the 9/11, and he just wants to hit out at someone. But like Cap is like, this isn't the way. We're better than this. We give in to like the terrorists win, which I like. I really like the message he's trying to put across. Because like it's so hard sometimes, you know. You hit out, you're in hurt, you hit out, and you don't always hit out at the people that deserve it, you know, and because it's a lot easier to give in to hate than it is to rise above it. So I kind of like the message that he was putting out there, but I just didn't feel this book needed it, because like we have that bit, and then the story jumps on a few weeks, and Cap's going on this mission to this town called Centerville, and it's sort of really, the story really shifts, and you know, it doesn't really, that first bit, there didn't seem to be a reason for it to be there. You know, it doesn't connect to the rest of the story. So like the next bit, as I say, we're going to Centerville, and this terrorist called Al Tariq has took over all of Centerville and wired people up to bombs, and he's going to blow them up as he gets Captain America. So Cap's going to go in, and he's going to, you know, and he goes through the town taking out all these terrorists, before he gets to Alteric, and he fights Alteric, and he knocks Alteric down. But Alteric's got this kind of like dog tag thing, and the green light turns red, and Alteric is dead. So Cap like unmasks on screen and says, "America didn't kill this guy, I did. If you've got a problem, you come to me. You don't go for America." So then Cap, the rest of the book is like Cap, that these dog tags, the Shield, I've got them as well as the enemy of these terrorists. So Cap's trying to investigate where these come from, because if Shield have got them and the enemy have got them, it seems somebody's playing both sides. So the rest of the story sort of is Cap trying to suss out who does it, and at the end we get the big conclusion where he finally gets to who he is. But even Cap doesn't recognise who it is, so it falls a bit flat, you know, at the end. And you know, it seemed to be like he had a good idea for a start of a story, but then he ran out of steam, and that's what it is. And by the end, it's very disappointing. The art, however, isn't disappointing. The art is really good. John Cassaday, I'm so pleased that he's back, got a full-time gig with Uncanny Avengers, because I really love John Cassaday's art. And in the books that I've seen of his, he does really good art. And in here, it's done beautifully as well. So yeah, so this is one I wouldn't recommend unless you collected the series. This is one you could miss, because I know certainly I probably won't read this again. Though I will probably flick through it because I like the art, but I probably won't read the story again. Like I said, it's a good idea, but it ran out of steam. And despite a good promising start and good art, I've got to give it a thumbs down. As always, I'll give you a tour of the book. It is number 27 in the series. There's the back cover. Inside, as always, you have the internal art there. We then have your cover, the New Deal. We then have, you know, all the people that put the book together. We then have like our thing, and then they write their little bit to the people of 9/11. So like then each cover is reprinted, and we start off with yeah, it's during 9/11. Sort of goes. It starts off with that day, and I just think we didn't really need this bit. Even though I think some of this art here with the dust, I think that's quite beautiful. I just think this was a whole bit we could have avoided. You know, and then yeah, but the art in this book was really good. So then at the back of the book, as always, we have our special features. I have a brilliant interview with the writer, and he himself admits it really lost its steam as it went on, that he was a bit disappointed with the outcome, which I can understand because it was an emotional time. Maybe it wasn't the right time to be writing comic books. You've got a nice little your cover gallery there, Cap, and you got your origins of Captain America there, which as always that's very interesting and with your further reading. But yeah, so that's Captain America, the New Deal. Finally, this month we have Marvels. This was released as issue 15. Kurt Busiek writes it with art by Alex Ross. And sometimes the best ideas in life are the most simple. This basically is like, I'd never read this book before. I didn't know what it was about, and basically it retells the early days of the Marvel Universe through the eyes of an average guy in the street, through this photographer called Phil Sheldon. So, you know, and you know, such a simple idea, but it works so well. The art is absolutely gorgeous. We kick off the story, I think it was with the first issue, I think it was issue 0 they called it, and basically it shows you the origin of the original Human Torch. Then issue 1, we see that origin again, but this time it's through the eyes of Phil Sheldon, the photographer, and through him we see the introduction of the Submariner, Captain America, Bucky, and he calls them the Marvels, and that's where the book gets its title from. He calls them the Marvels, and we see these Marvels come into the world and how they affect everyday life and how they change how people look at things. You know, Phil calls off his engagement because he feels now, how can he protect his wife? You know, a husband should be able to protect a wife, which is very the attitudes of the time that it's set in. That is the kind of attitude that would have prevailed. And he feels, I can't protect my wife from a guy who can burst into flame or a guy with super strength. So, you know, makes me less of a man. And he sort of has to work through that. And each issue sort of has something that Phil has to work through, something to do with the marbles that he works through. And he goes on, you know, an emotional journey in each issue. And I really enjoyed this book. It was a book I kept coming to, and I think it's a book I'll keep reading for a long time to come. It works on two levels. It works on the level that if you never read a Marvel comic before and you don't know none of these characters, it works in that you're introduced to this world and to these characters, and you don't really need to know any foreknowledge, because the story is about not about the heroes but about Phil Sheldon and the effect having these heroes in the world have on him and his life. So you can follow it easily, but then at the same time it works on the other level of that if you have read all of those stories from the Silver Age, all those stories that introduced all those heroes that are in this book or are touched upon in this book, then you're going to get a lot of other things, because you see how these stories connect and how they affected the people on the ground level that we don't always get to see. Like I say, a fantastic idea, brilliantly realised, brilliantly written, brilliantly illustrated. The art, they do a different style. There is a bit at the back that explains how they did it all. It took absolutely ages. There's no way you could do this as a regular way of producing comics, but as a one-off, it's a wonderful treat, and it does look really good, really great. And I really enjoyed this book, and you know, I definitely give it a thumbs up, and it's definitely one of my favourite books that we've had thus far. As you can see, you got the cover there. We've then got the side, issue 13 is what they've called it. It was released as issue 15, but in the series it will come as 13. And then of course we've got the back as well, as always. Inside we have a montage of Marvel heroes. We then have our cover, followed by the names of the people who put this book together. We then have introduction with the first cover of issue 0. As you can see, the art is really unique. He's painted each picture rather than have a colorist and the usual way you put comics together. But it just works so brilliantly. It just works so well, but it's a process that takes so much longer. But yeah, there's some great moments. The other thing that's really good about the book, however, I love this page. This is one of my favourite pages. I love that, the fire in the sky. Is that after each book, there's a special foreword. You know, you have a special commentary throughout the book. Stan Lee turns up in one of them. He writes a piece. I think that's after the 0 issue. Stan Lee, forward by Stan Lee, and there's one of them after each issue, which is a nice little touch. You know, like there you got Alex Ross with his commentary. John Romita as well is there, so you know, nice little getting their input on their thoughts. Then after the end of the book, we have even more extra bits, as we have Creating Marvels, a look at how they put it together, not just how they writ the story, but how Alec Ross done the art, how, you know, how it was all done, which I found really interesting. seeing the process that this was done in, and it's pretty in-depth. All the extras are taken up pretty much by how they put this groundbreaking book together. And then you've got his realizations of some of the classic covers in Marvel history. But yeah, and also our further reading at the back. But yeah, this was an excellent book. Even if you're not collecting this series, this is another one. Really go and check it out. It's a great book. If you've not read Marvel Comics before, it's a great book, a great way to start, to get a taste of some of the heroes and look at the universe through a regular person's eyes. If you have read those books back in the day, this is a great nostalgia book to read, and also you get that interesting story that they tell. So yeah, anyway you look at it, this is, I think, one of the must-buy books of the series, and I definitely give it a massive thumbs up. There we go, there's another review down and done. I will be back as soon as possible. I've read one of the next 3, so I've got 2 more to read, and then I'll be back with another part 6 in my reviews. Thank you as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.